probably
it's
need
not.
it, but I don't need it.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome to another episode of I Mustache You Something. I'm actually getting a mustache, so
You
I like
are. You
it.
grew
I
it
like it.
back.
right? All of the white in my beard looks like I have a handlebars, which is great. So we're
I
we're
guess
on
in
brand for once.
in honor of Mandami's win in New York State, you're taking on the Islamist look, which is very.
No, that would be shaving this, wouldn't it?
Assalamu alaikum.
No, it's the reverse mustache, right?
Yeah,
White
the
people
reverse
don't know.
mustache.
White people don't know.
We know. No, we listen. When we know everyone that comes in, we go, okay,
All right, good. As long as you
okay,
know.
good to know. We're gonna put that. We got our own baseball cards up.
As long as you
That way we
know.
know.
As long as you know.
Yeah.
I saw a screenshot of a Facebook message that said, "Never forget 9/11. 11/5. We forgot." And I'm like, is there like did they know something that I don't know? Like was this guy involved like somehow? Like I don't see the
Maybe.
Born
connection.
even?
Like
We're
was
starting
yeah,
on
right.
hot
Like
topics. We're
I
starting
don't
on
like
hot
I
topics.
stared at it. I was like, maybe I'm not smart enough, but I'm not following the connection here. So the last time we talked about some, sensitive topics as they relate to Saint Mary and opinions about how certain things are interpreted. I don't know, Ralph, Mitch, do you guys have any follow-up on that before we continue the conversation?
I can just speak as like the person here. So the church came out with a "thou shall not say," but you can still kind of say it's not anathema. I think so. The church has now said that we can no longer use spicy terminology around Mary. To
Like,
which I say, you can say it, but it's not advisable. This is I want so you can like the words we're talking about, co-redemptress, mediatrix, like words like that they need nuance and context.
yeah.
My, to which I say, I'm not in charge. You are church. So, okay, that's the new rule. Fine. Do I like it? No. Is it the rule? Sure. It's not anathema. It's not a
Mitch,
like
can you
sin to say.
share with these guys something that you said to me? Uh, and I don't think you said it like sort of in confidence. I think this is a very important point about like the stuff that you guys talking about, the things that you guys have evaluated that I just sort of take for granted as a Catholic. Can you tell us about that? Because I think that's a really important um, nuance here.
I don't remember what I said. Can you remind
So
me?
I mean, hopefully, like I said, if this is
Yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, if
Yeah.
this is in confidence, then we won't use the recording. But
Okay.
I thought Mitch said something that was really, really, really humble and personal and profound, which is the three of you guys talk about and discuss things at a level where
Oh yeah.
you have like dug deep into the roots of something that I'm just looking at the tree and saying the church says it's a tree, and I'm saying fine. And I
Yeah.
think that it is a product of being Coptic and not having a magisterium and not having, very, very clear canon law that we sort of follow and say, well, the church says so. And we have to explore. And sometimes we are misled and we are told things about sort of guilt and sin and atonement that we're like, no, I don't. And we have to go back to the church fathers. And we can't just sort of take things at face value because we heard them in a sermon once. And I don't I don't think that every Catholic appreciates how well thought through and how intensely studied some of the positions that the Catholic Church takes. And
Yeah.
you guys just sort of take it for granted that like, oh, well, somebody smart has taken this into consideration and they're going to tell me what I think. But we also don't appreciate the value of us having to unearth all these things sort of on our own and not taking it for granted that just because somebody said something, it makes it true.
Yeah, I was mentioning to Mina how much deeper you guys have looked into things I take for granted. Like the idea of sin, basically, like just in general. Like you guys have gone deep on things where I pick up one book and I have a book, two books, Catechism and the Bible, and go, okay, you guys say this is the way it is. You're
Great.
smarter than me. We got Aquinas. Like I'm out. Like you win. I can't. I'm not smarter than Aquinas. I know that. I'm not. that's so I go, okay, you guys, and then the thing that I learned as a younger individual is I do really well when the rule book is out and I follow the rule book. So if the church came out tomorrow and said something I completely disagree with, okay, that's the rule. I follow the rules. Like that's maybe it's the German in me. And but I just was like, all right, that's the plan. So when that came out from the church that you like use nuance, try not to use these terms, okay, fair enough. You're in charge. And I have that trust that I'm part of the mother church and that's the plan. And I don't question it. Where I feels like there's a lot of questioning that kind of happens on with you three. Like you can go dive deep, 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 deep into something. I don't even like I never even like I'll go, all right, that's cool. And then I just go move on. And
Right.
it's the trust that I have in the Catholic Church that I take for granted for sure.
Right. And I don't know if that's a good thing. Like, I don't know,
It could be good or
Ralph and
bad.
Sharif, like, I've never been someone to just take somebody's word for it, right? If so you tell me something and it doesn't make sense, then there are people that I will literally tell them, you're probably right, I'm probably wrong, and I will probably end up changing my mind. In the meantime, like, let me look into this more because even though you're usually right and I'm usually wrong, I can't just sort of take it for granted that in this specific situation with this specific question that that's the case. I'll get back to you. And I don't like, I'd love to be, more easygoing. I'm just not. And I don't know to what extent that it is helping us or hurting us to be that sort of compulsive about answering the questions for ourselves.
I think the Bible gives us two different examples, and both are valid, right? So you have the example of the wedding feast at Cana and the Virgin Mary telling the stewards, do what he tells you to do.
Hmm.
Simple. Don't ask him questions. He's going to tell you whatever he tells you to do. Just do it.
Hmm.
You know, that's an example for us too. Whatever Jesus tells you to do, whatever the church tells you to do, just do it. And so that's the Mitch, which if, the Virgin Mary said it, we listen to her. But then the other side of that is, Thomas, all his, Peter and John came to him. Mary Magdalene came to him and said, "Jesus is risen. Jesus is risen." And he was like, "Well, yeah, unless I see it, unless I do it and feel it on my own." And then when Jesus showed it to him, the Bible doesn't even tell us he put his fingers in, but Jesus came to him and said, do you want to put your hands on my side and put your fingers through my through my wounds? And he just dropped down on his knees and said, "My Lord and my God." So I think both of those, if they're done honestly, you arrive at the same sort of bowing nature to Christ. So I don't know if one is better than the other. I know they both complement each other, and sometimes some people are good for the former, and some people are good for the latter. And Christ didn't chide Thomas. That's my thoughts.
And for what it's worth, the highest Christological statement in the entire New Testament, or actually like in the Gospels of like the contemporaries of Christ,
Yeah,
is Thomas, right?
yeah.
Like he's the only one that says, "My Lord." Like even Peter, who says, "You're the Savior, you're the Christ, you're the Messiah." He doesn't say, "My Lord and my God."
And then followed down by prostrating himself before the Lord,
Right.
and Jesus accepting his worship. So I mean, it's and I think I would love to be able to turn to Catechism number 136 and find out what an answer to a question is. And sometimes I do. I steal my kids' catechisms and I and I look things up. Um, but even still, I'm like so personally, I'm so interested in the the mechanism of whatever it is I'm reading about that I want it to make sense in my head, And that's probably a fault of mine. And I don't know if that's something all Copts have. I don't think so because most Copts are just as misinformed or as most Catholics are, All right, you go up to a Catholic, are you a Christian? No, I'm Catholic. I mean, I've heard that hundreds of times from Catholics, you know, and that's because they're misinformed. So, I don't think there's anything special about the Roman Catholic Church that, inspires people to have sort of this knowledge through osmosis. I think the four of us all are interested in deeper questions. Our answers might be all different sometimes, but I think the fact that we're asking the same questions, I think, is what's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Sharif.
One thing is, I think the East, the Christians, the East are challenged more with schisms, with Islam, with philosophy early on. So we ask a lot of questions. We are asked a lot of questions, while in the West,
Yeah.
by far from the year 312 till the year 1517, approximately, give or take, no
Unchecked.
question,
Yeah.
or much less questions.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a good point. Right. When you're having to, defend your faith to, 80% of your community that calls you, an infidel and a kafir is a lot different than growing up in, Venice, where every single person is Catholic and no one challenges each other. So that's a great point, Sharif. Yeah.
And I sent you guys a link to one of my favorite things that I've ever read by C.S. Lewis on petitionary prayer. And it's something that applies not just to our faith of like, how do you know that's true? It's not just an epistemological question of, how do we know that about God or how do we know this to be true? But also a relational issue that we have with God where how do we pray and what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to ask God to help us or are we supposed to accept what God gives us and be thankful? And we're supposed to do both. And C.S. Lewis, as usual, knocks it out of the park, talking about petitionary prayer and saying that there's two patterns, pattern A and pattern B. Pattern A is Gethsemane, and where you say, well, I don't like this. This isn't great, but I accept it. Like, thank you, God, for, and we say this in the Thanksgiving prayer, for every condition, any condition, whatever condition, right? And he said, if this is the only thing, if this is all we were supposed to do, I can get on board with that. Like, that's easy. But don't tell me that sometimes, oh, you're a bad Christian because you don't pray with faith. And if you ask, then you would be given this. And, seek and you shall find. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. All of a sudden, there's this like B pattern now that I'm also held to that standard that if I'm a good, faithful Christian, that I need to ask for things with faith. So he says, and he doesn't leave it with any kind of resolution. He doesn't say like, and therefore in these times we say A,
Right, right.
and in these times we say B. He just kind of leaves it like, so I don't know.
What do
Like,
you
what
mean
do you
so?
think?
There's a
So
nudity in my frame. Sorry, everyone. My kids, I didn't realize I was not on mute, and my kids are coming in and out asking for snacks, and I don't want them on camera. Sorry about that.
the
Snacks you don't
yes,
want
the
on
kids
camera, or the
now.
kids.
The snacks are fine because
Oh,
they're just meat sticks, and
Oh,
the kids I don't want on camera. So I've what I'm hearing from you three is there's a reason you defend, but man, from a practical purpose, let me ask this question. It's from a practical purpose. It's too much, man, to like go to war over everything. Like so eventually you got to be like, I got work, I got kids, I got stuff. It's so much easier, to be honest with you, to be like, yeah, I just listen to them over there. They don't even have sex. They just study the Bible. Like that's their only job. So like, why do I got stuff to do. So did I just burn the podcast? I mean, so it's a thing people do when a mommy and daddy love each other. Um,
right. But I think
but my
I think it's weird to say that people that have sex are less likely to have thought something through.
I was making a small joke, but I have stuff to do.
you-
That being one of my favorite
you're
activities.
talking about the
Hence why I
priests,
have
right?
kids.
You're talking about
Yeah,
priests.
so like priest and like that's their job. So I don't think. I mean, if you're, it also like when does it become? When does the infighting stop? When it's like I think the Catholic Church is the ultimate. Yeah, I said so. Like it's like yeah, that you're gonna do it because like yeah, I said so, and it's a billions of us who have to be
Yeah.
like, all right, yeah, Papa said so, so that's the rule. Okay. And we all go, all right,
So
that sucks, but
Sharif's
that's
eyebrows just went like this. So if you're watching the recording, I want you to go back and see
yeah.
Sharif's eyebrows go like this.
So that's the question I would have is
And
of
Sharif's
when
gonna answer it.
yeah, so the yeah, I said so is important for running a society this big. You have to be able to be like, I said so. And we all have to go, I submit. And submittal is an important part of being a man, but not to like other folks, but to people who are worthy. I've deemed the Catholic Church worthy, so I submit to it. And submittal is important, in my opinion.
As I said, Catholic Church tolerate no schism but so many heresies, and Orthodox churches tolerate many schisms but not a single heresy. So I'm not
Yeah,
labeling it
I
heresy,
agree.
but the idea of it.
Huh.
Yeah.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So here's another thing that's come up in the last couple of weeks since we started talking is they had this incredible conference at Hellenic College at Holy Cross. Uh, a lot of Orthodox, both Eastern and Oriental Orthodox theologians, teachers, servants, people that are sort of in the world serving and bringing to the forefront of the conversation the reality that we have more in common than we have that's different. And
Mhm.
I personally feel very strongly about the Miaphysite position. I think, we're framed as monophysites and saying, oh, well, you're like Eutyches or Apollinaris or somebody that, says that the divinity is more important than the humanity. And we never said that. We just said the divinity parted not from his humanity for a single moment nor a twinkling of an eye, which is the language that we have in our confession and is the language that Chalcedon used. And the only thing that we were debating is whether it's in two natures or out of two natures. And we prefer out of two natures because once the humanity and the divinity are united into that Miaphysite incarnate word that St. Cyril wrote about in response to Nestorius, we don't like this idea of saying two natures. We all agree that it's one hypostasis, and we all agree that he's fully human and fully divine. And I think, for me personally, it is more correct to say that he has the unified incarnate word, and you don't get stuck in this potential confusion that, oh, he's two different natures. I don't feel comfortable with that. I'm not going to die on that hill if somebody says, yes, he has two natures, divine and human, that are unified. And
In
I
one
am
person.
in one, yeah, I think, I'm comfortable with someone saying, yeah, but we prefer Chalcedon and we have seven councils and we can't just throw that away. And as long as we can reconcile on a pastoral level and, take communion together and love each other and understand that we're worshiping the same Christ and the same Christ is on the altar, right? I'm comfortable with all of that. Just because I prefer the Miaphysite position to the Chalcedonian language doesn't mean that I'm going to die on that hill of we have to be this or we can't be that. And I think that's what the conference was saying, but on both sides, right? Like, oh, I prefer the Chalcedonian, or I prefer the non-Chalcedonian, I prefer the Miaphysite, I prefer, Saint Maximin. Oh, fine, fine. We can talk about from a Christological standpoint what our preferences are, but are we going to excommunicate each other and schism and persist in schism simply because of that disagreement? And I think Sharif's point is well taken, is that we're so hyper vigilant about, sorting out the the accent and the letter and the inflection and like the emphasis of the word that we're willing to be in schism. And I don't know if, that's really served us well.
But coming back to the Miaphysite theology, a point that Mitch brought, like those priests who are not married, they understand better. The essence of Miaphysism is like the sanctification of the body. I'm
Hmm.
not telling that like other Chalcedonian, like whether Greek Orthodox or Catholic, they don't sanctify the body, but we have in Oriental Orthodoxy um, a ref, or we should have, let's put it this way,
Hmm. You should. Right.
we should have a more refined understanding of marriage and bodily relationship.
Hmm.
That's
But
why
sorry.
refuting the Latin behavior of forbidding priests from being married and actually opening the topic of married bishops, whether widowed or actual married, in the 21st century Orthodox Church is something that we should look at then on a canonical, pastoral, and tradition, biblical slash traditional way.
Hmm.
That'll never happen because the monks have too much power and they will never give that power up. Let's just be as much as, that was they once the monks took over the church, then it's all done after that. They don't care if, in the centuries prior to Nicaea, the rule was, whatever floats your boat, basically. But now it's how, how do you expect them to give up that power to you and me? That's never going to happen, man. As much as I agree with you, but it's never going to happen.
So it's not in Nicaea.
Now,
Even
whatever it
after
was, I
that, we
mean,
had married bishops.
sure, okay, but it's
But
been,
21st century, it, I'm not like portraying or I'm not saying that, oh, we need to have married bishops. But if for example, a priest who is like well versed, well knowledgeable, has good standing, give him a bishopric mission
Hmm.
as a vicar. And actually, our Coptic Pope, papal vicar in Alexandria, two bishop reports to him in a
Hmm.
kind of unprecedented situation. He's a married priest, but two general bishops are working and kind of reporting to him and to the Pope together.
Hmm.
This example can be emphasized, expanded, and I don't care if a married priest can be a bishop or a married layman can be a bishop. It's to raise the sanctity of the marriage.
Hmm. Right. And the standing of the marriage, not to be seen as something less than, but as something that's a different path. And as a point of history, I
Yeah.
sent another book to you guys. This one is not like the text, but the link. And this is Through the Eye of a Needle by Peter Brown. So it's a text that we used in a class that I took at BC on the transition that the church made before and after the legalization of Christianity was the Edict of Milan. Is that right? Um, so before the Edict of Milan, where it was illegal to be Christian, right? And you were pagan and you had to be this, and then, the whole empire converts to Christianity, and now all of a sudden it's the cool thing to do the cool thing to do to be Christian, right? So you went from if you want to hold a public office, you can't be Christian to if you want to hold a public office, you have to be Christian. And the way that they addressed wealth in the fourth century shifted, where in the beginning of the fourth century, in the early 300s, the church was poor and like they didn't have any money. And then by the end of the fourth century, the church is rich. And the priests, the people that were, responsible for the pastoral care of Christians, went from, disenfranchised, marginalized people in society to people that were now, carrying a certain amount of money. And what they found in the Western church is that it became a problem, and they started passing that money along to their descendants. So
Mhm.
one of the reasons that they got rid of marriage in the Western church was not because of the sex thing. That's a misunderstanding. That's an anachronism that comes later with Anselm and Augustine and like, a lot of misunderstanding that they're saying, oh, sex is bad. But that has nothing to do with the priest. The priest, it was about money, not about sex. And those are the two things that obviously drive the world, like sex and money. But in this case, it happened to be the money, not the sex.
Money and
Makes sense.
property transfer is the issue, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do with like who owns Abuna's house
Right.
is a question. And then how does it just go back to the church? Is there like it's a it's a real problem. And that's why there's a lot of Catholics who are like, "Hey, we should let them get married. That'll deal with our problem in the church." And my point is that problem is legitimately a problem. Sorry, is it's a problem, but it's the bigger problem becomes later.
think we have another uh, kid
Yeah, I have another
to be
kid
answered.
situation. Sorry.
Awfully
This
sorry.
this is
You know
this
that
is
the Greek Melkite Catholic Church and some of the Coptic Catholic churches, they allow married priests. So it's for the
And I think
latter.
that's fine, but at scale, because we're like this is the difference, right? Is the
Mm.
Catholic Church at scale, this becomes a much bigger problem. Because
Yeah.
there will be a few who are like, yeah, I'll just give it, I'll do the right thing, whatever that right thing is, and everyone kind of agree at a one-to-one basis. But at scale, what do you do about that problem?
and let's just be clear for the less the, for people that are not picking up on Mitch's subtlety there, he's talking about um
We know what he's talking about.
okay, good.
Everyone knows what
Okay.
he's talking. Who doesn't know what
I don't know.
anyone living every
Like
Hindus
no,
in
like
Punjab know what he's talking about. Like what?
all right,
What are you
fine. Then
talking
I don't need
about?
to clarify. Um,
So there
I
might be
do.
children watching.
We don't need to be too clear.
We don't need to be
Um,
that clear.
I guess th this speaks to Mitch's point earlier, where it's like, how deep do you need to understand something? Can't you just sort of take it at face value? And I'm like, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I do not have that skill. I want to make sure. Like even the text messages that I sent, you know, Sharif asked, "Can we do 6 o'clock?" And Ralph is 100% right. I should have just accepted that. Like, if Sharif's the one that's asking, then he's probably good for 6 o'clock. But no, I want to clarify, right? Like, trust but verify. Like, I want to make sure. Like, are we good for six?
Well,
Uh,
that's the Mina Msiha thing. That has nothing to do with what we are talking about.
but no, but like, I think,
Double checking.
but we all have different set points for how much clarity we want. And my set point for clarity, I understand, is on like the extreme end, and that's a learned behavior, right? Like that is learned from being misled, and I don't like to be misled. That's learned from being confused, and I don't like to be confused. That's learned from things not working out or being inefficient or falling short, and I don't like any of that. Like I like for things to go a certain way. So if I spend a little bit of extra effort clarifying something, even if it's like this stupid thing that I'm doing is clarifying about being clear, right? Like that's something that I value, and someone else might go, oh, yeah, leave it a little fuzzy. But we're coming back full circle to the to what degree of questioning are we subjecting ourselves and others to, and what degree of acceptance are we just sort of giving ourselves the grace and the peace to just accept as, it's clear enough, it's close enough, it's good enough. And how do we adjudicate that? Like what is the right amount of questioning?
Well, I mean, God Himself, I think it's in Psalm, says, come, let us reason together.
Mm.
I don't think God is afraid of obviously, God's not afraid of our questioning. So I don't, so priests shouldn't be afraid of our questioning or our doubts or our trying to dig further and trying to understand more. I mean, everything that we have, everything that we say, that even that well thought out, you know, millennial or millennium long, catechism or the creed itself is simply, you know, children drawing you know, I asked my kid when he's 3 years old, hey, can you draw a sun? And he takes a yellow crayon and he makes a circle, and he puts little rays on it. He says, that's the sun.
Right.
And I say, very good, very well done. And you can get the biggest physicist to tell you what the sun is, and it's still not the sun. You can look at a
It's still an
telescope, it's still not the
approximation.
sun. It's
Right.
still a narrative, a story that we tell that doesn't come anywhere close. But if I asked my 3-year-old to draw the sun and he drew a chair, I'd say, okay, well, there's something wrong with that. So, even our best systemic, ideas of God or our best analysis of theology or our, C.S. Lewis or, Cyril the Great, they're all just stories, about I mean, the infinite of infinites. Like you know, even the idea, even the understanding of the Trinity, as correct as we all believe it to be, and as correct as it is, it's still just a drop in the ocean of God's reality. So, I mean, as long as we know that, but again, you know, you know, there are people who you ask who God is and they draw you a chair, and that's not right, you know. Um, and we're all drawing our little suns in little yellow crayons with little rays, but that's the sun, you know. So I don't think it's so off to come up with a narrative that explains it the right way, and then to dig further and see is this narrative a little better? Can we tweak this narrative here? Can we make this generality a little more specific? You know, but you know anything after that, or you know, dying like you say, dying on the hill of your narrative, or you know, is you know what's the use?
Right. My son is better than yours.
It probably is, but it's not the sun.
Right. It's still not the
You know,
sun.
it's still not the sun.
Mitch, you've got something bubbling up to the surface here.
That's
I
that's
don't know.
okay.
It yeah, I'm just wondering that I hear maybe I missed too much because I've got kids. I'm a solo dadding.
Probably.
So, um I guess the question I would have is if we can't get perfect and we can't be if that's then what's the point? If we can't if it's all like yeah, we're going to be close. I guess my question is like my if I keep getting back to the point of like the reason that I there's a lots of complaints to have about the Coptic Orthodox hierarchy, with hierarchy in general.
Hmm.
And it's popular to do that today because like they're not perfect either. But someone has to be able to say this is the way we go, and then the group needs to follow in order to like for things to work. Priests being able to get married or not.
Okay.
Or we're all just
Hmm.
Protestant and we're our own little church. And that, listen, man, like, okay, that sounds like a lot of work to me, but like, that's just me being lazy. Like,
But
there
isn't
at
that
some
just
point you
all the
had,
periphery? Isn't that all the periphery? Priests married or not married? The the church's position on either one of these isn't going to get anyone to hell or heaven, is it?
no, 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 no. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the
But the
stuff that
respect,
Wait,
matters
the
was
well,
the
sanctity of marriage is.
maybe though. I'm wondering. Let me think about this. The grand total of all the little things add up to a lot, and then you find yourself in hell. So that's what I would
No,
say.
no,
So
no,
we're
no.
out of time, which is great, and I love that bomb drop right at the end. I think next time we can pick up where we left off with I mustache you something, where we mustache you to tune in next time to answer this really, really, really important question that we're discussing about, how close is close enough. So we'll see.